Hi, good morning, everybody. I want to take you through some info here. And I once again take a look at stress. I'm just turning on my laser pointer. So I want to get into this idea that we need to pay attention to our students' mental health and well-being. And I think if I can help you understand what stress is all about at a deeper level, we can collectively use this to really make a difference in what's going on with the kids that we are working with. So chronic stress is stress that we're feeling on any kind of a regular basis, like 4 or 5 times a week. And it's a consistent feeling, consistent sense of feeling pressure and feeling overwhelmed for a long period of time. And that can come from lots of different kinds of things. So the effects of feeling stress are attention and concentration problems, sleep problems, physical aches and pains, irritability, anxiety, boredom, and depression. Those various combinations of those things is how stress affects people. And stress can vary from I don't have my homework done to I'm going to be late for work to I don't have enough money to things are not feeling safe at my house because my parents are fighting. It can be I'm not sure we've got enough food. It can be there's kids picking on me at school. It can be listening to constant sort of negative diatribes from people in staff rooms. It can be feeling that we're not good enough. It can come from lots of different ways. And the basic stress response has been hardwired into our system for thousands of years. It's absolutely no different now than it was when we lived in caves, and it's really a survival thing. So when you were a prehistoric human out gathering food, if you heard a crack in the bushes behind you, your stress response system allowed you to pay instant attention to that and act on it. Because if you didn't, there was a really good chance that what cracked in the bushes was something that was going to eat you. And the fact that we are still here as humans is an indication that our stress response has helped us to survive. Now, one of the either fortunate or unfortunate things is that response hasn't changed in hundreds of thousands of years. It's exactly the same. So when you're late for work or have too much marking, or you're a high school student and feel like you've got too much homework, or your phone's going off every 30 seconds with a notification from Snapchat or whatever, all of those things create that same stress response as it did when you looked around and it was, oh my God, there's a tiger behind me. So a big part of our job is helping kids and helping ourselves understand how to manage this stuff. So there's a whole bunch of things that create a stress response. So I'll go through them quick here. So not enough sleep. Sleep is incredibly important. Most kids need anywhere from 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And there's a bunch of things that go on in our brain when we're sleeping that help make us more efficient. Our neural growth factor, which helps solidify new learning, is refreshed when we're sleeping. Our cerebral spinal fluid is pulled out of our brain and cleaned and put back in when we're sleeping. That helps our brain function better. There's a bunch of restorative stuff that happens when we're sleeping, and if we don't get enough sleep, we start to experience stress. Too much social media, flipping through TikTok, flipping through Instagram reels or Facebook reels or whatever, starts to dysregulate our dopamine. And when our dopamine's dysregulated, we start to feel stress. Constant negative thinking we're not good enough, or this isn't right, or that isn't right, gets us stuck in that stress response thing. Any drug use, including nicotine, starts to create a stress response. And I'll get into why in a bit here. Excessive use of alcohol, and excessive use is kind of any more than a couple of drinks a couple of times a week. Not eating enough, being dishonest creates stress response. Too much caffeine, too much sugar, being in an unhealthy relationship puts us in that fourth F. So there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn is when we're stuck in an unhealthy relationship and trying to make things better. Having unreal expectations on ourselves, putting unrealistic expectations on other people, and having other people put unrealistic expectations on us. All of those create stress. And getting stuck thinking about the past or future also create a stress response. So as soon as we feel that initial stress, so our amygdala picks up on something that we perceive as uncomfortable or a threat or whatever, a fundamental change goes on right through our whole system. So we have two nervous systems. We have a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. So stress response activates that sympathetic nervous system. So our pupils dilate, mouth dries up, heart rate goes up, your chest relaxes, because we might have to run, and we want to be able to get as much oxygen into our lungs as we can. Our digestion pretty much stops, because if you're running away from a bear, you don't have to digest food. You want your energy on your legs, not your tummy. Gallbladder stops working, your intestines don't work. You secrete epinephrine and norepinephrine, which are basically adrenaline. And your bladder relaxes, because you don't need to worry about that. Just run like heck. We can deactivate that by activating our parasympathetic nervous system. So if you're already feeling stressed because of all this stuff that I'm firing at you, just close your eyes for a second or lower your eyes, and just feel yourself sitting on your chair, wherever you happen to be. Take in a big, slow, deep breath to 1, 2, 3, and let it out. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you did that, you activated that parasympathetic nervous system. You basically used your breathing to tell your brain that you are okay, that things are okay, that things are safe. So if you started to think, God, he's going on and on and on, he's never going to shut up, and you did that, then that whole stress response system started to relax. So your pupils relaxed, your started to get some saliva going again, your heart slowed down, your lungs started working better, stomach started to digest food, your gallbladder started working, intestines started working, and your bladder tightened up. And really what I'm going to be talking about in here is how we can help kids learn to do that, and why that is so incredibly important. So we have an HPA axis, so our hypothalamus pituitary adrenal glands are that axis that activates that stress response system. So I'm not going to read all this to you because you'll have access to it. But what I'm talking about is science and biology. This isn't hooey-fooey stuff about how we need to sit on pillows, or we need to sit cross-legged or tent our fingers all the time, or whatever. This is about how to manage this really fundamental physiological response that we have to stress. And like I said, stress isn't just extreme things. It's lots of little things that can build up. So how we take in stress is interesting. So our amygdala, which is this little almond-shaped thing in the middle here, everything that goes on around us is directed in there. So if we smell something bad, that notifies our amygdala that there might be something dangerous here. If we see something that is worrisome, I think a really good example is you're walking along and there's a stick on the ground, and is that a snake? That's a stress response. So physical changes around us, but also thoughts start to affect that amygdala reaction, which stimulates that stress response. So yes, this is complicated, but it's also really interesting, and it can help us understand why this stuff is important. So when we are unstressed, our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that does the thinking, is well fed with dopamine. Dopamine's a really important neurotransmitter. Most of us just think about it as the pleasure neurotransmitter, but it's a whole bunch of other stuff. It has to do with motivation, and ultimately it has to do with giving the brain capacity to process stuff. So when we are not stressed, we've got really good control of our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. So prefrontal cortex is working. When we are stressed, because of the changes that go on in our body, the activation of that sympathetic nervous system, dopamine's pulled away from the prefrontal cortex and put into this limbic system, the stress response system, which pulls that thinking part of our brain offline and puts us in a very reactive, I got to deal with this, I got to pay attention to this kind of mode. So we are teachers. As scary as this sounds, this is, I'm just finishing my 51st year of working in Regina Catholic. I love teaching. I love kids. We need to be role models. We need to show kids that we care about them. And absolutely, we need to get through the material that we are trying to help them understand. But we need to remember that the kids are more important than the material that we are teaching. Shifting that balance can really make a difference in relaxing them, in helping them understand that, okay, I matter here. And feeling that we matter really helps us to relax. Like, we're not feeling defensive, we're not feeling protective. So over the past few years, due to a variety of issues, including a pandemic, kids have been experiencing a higher stress response level, which has impacted their ability to attend to learning. If you are experiencing stress, it's really hard to pay attention to anything else. It's really hard to retain information. And so number 3 says, if we can help them manage their stress, then that increases their capacity to learn and feel rewarded by what they are experiencing. So kids have been seeking out other rewards for quite a while, and one of the rewards that they are getting regularly, which unfortunately adds to the stress impact, is what's going on with their phones. Even if you're not looking at your phone, you got it in your pocket or you got it on your desk, and you get a notification, that creates a stress response. What's that? Who's that? Do I got to look at that? And you know, if you remove that potential stress from their environment, then you're helping them learn how to pay attention better. Because there's a big reward attached to paying attention to what's going on with those devices. You know, we might get a like, we might get something funny, we might see a cartoon, we might, you know, there's all sorts of things. Doesn't really matter what it is, but we've attached reward to responding to what's going on those devices, and it's really important to remember that from like 10 to 25, that prefrontal cortex part of their brains is developing. And if we don't really help them by creating an atmosphere where they can start to learn to use that, we're really reducing our capacity to teach them anything. So helping them learn how to manage stress is a really important lifelong skill. It's going to help them manage their mental health. Because if we're stressed all the time, that really sort of complicates how things are going. So if we can like seriously look at starting each class with 1 to 5 minutes of a focusing exercise that activates that parasympathetic nervous system, that deactivates the stress response and allows dopamine flow to return to that prefrontal cortex. This is a scientific, well-researched way to help people learn together. And parking cell phones really helps kids pay attention to what you as a teacher are trying to do. When they have access to their phones, their focus will be pulled towards whatever notification comes in, even if they don't look at it. And that notification activates their stress response, cortisol is released, and dopamine is pulled into their limbic system. So as soon as there's something that like triggers that amygdala, oh God, I got to pay attention. You know, what is that? You know, I gotta see this. Now that can be you as a teacher, or it can be what's going on in their phone. If you want it to be you as a teacher, then we need to create an environment where this actually is possible. If they're constantly if their attention is constantly pulled towards something other than what's going on there, we're really pushing a big rock uphill. So as soon as that stress response happens, our adrenal glands through that HPA axis releases cortisol. That causes a significant, really quick change in our brain. And so dopamine's pulled away from here, put into here. So we're going to fight, freeze, flee, or fawn. That reduces our capacity to pay attention to anything other than that, whatever that is. Our big picture perception is reduced. It basically turns off your hippocampus, which is your short-term memory formulation part of your brain. Your capacity to learn is reduced, even your vocabulary is reduced. Because if you're running away from a bear, you don't have to be articulate, you just have to run. So this is acute stress. This is in the moment. Chronic stress, when that's going on all the time, starts to disrupt sleep. And we talked about how important that is. So not enough sleep creates more stress. you don't digest food as well, so your nutrition isn't happening the way it should. And because you're unsettled, you're in constant emotional distress. So if we look at this again, you know, uh, allowing situations that are constantly stressful for kids is making it really difficult for us to teach. And it's also making it really difficult for them to function, for them to get engaged in other things. Because if you're running away from a bear, which essentially is what's happening, not much else is going on. And so by starting each class with a couple of minutes of, okay, let's settle down, let's try this, let's do this. And it takes practice. You can't do it once a week and think that this is going to make a difference, because life isn't lived once a week. Life is lived moment by moment. And so if we can start to create a practice where we are giving kids the opportunity to learn how to manage their emotions better, and that's exactly what we're doing, we can help change things. So stress causes, this is like a negative stress cycle. It causes an automatic thought of, I don't like this, or this needs, this really needs to be attended to. It also can cause physical symptoms, so agitation, frustration, uh, uh, a lot of ADD, ADHD comes out in a negative physical response to stress. So hard to pay attention, hard to sit still. Can cause a negative mood, because we're not happy when we're stressed. This doesn't feel good. And then we start with maladaptive behaviors. We start to look for something else that's going to fix how we feel. Maladaptive means it isn't working very well. So using a little bit of breathing, using a little bit of thought focusing, using a little bit of mindfulness is an adaptive behavior. Maladaptive behavior is going to hit a vape, wanting to get back on my phone to see what that was, looking at another reel, looking at another TikTok, uh, uh, smoking some weed, drinking some alcohol, whatever. If we look at this a little bit deeper, there's a really interesting cycle that goes on with this stuff. So as soon as we're caught in that sort of stress response cycle, we've started to deplete dopamine, and that creates an executive function deficit. Like this part isn't working as well as it should. So we get a preoccupation and anticipation with trying to fix that. And so that has craving, it has impulsivity, it has working memory problems, and thinking problems, executive function problems. That creates some incentive salience. What that means is we want to fix this. Maybe I shouldn't fix it, but I want to fix it. Maybe I shouldn't fix it, but I want to fix it. So it pulls your attention all over the place. So we're looking for an escape. We're looking for euphoria, intoxication. We've taught ourselves that by doing whatever it is, whether it's alcohol, weed, nicotine, too much sugar, flipping through social media stuff, that gives us what we're looking for briefly. So we've created a pattern, but that immediately throws the neurotransmitter dopamine out of balance. There's a downregulation of dopamine, and that causes an immediate negative affect. Dysphoria, which is a word that includes depression, it's a little bit bigger than that. Irritability, anxiety, and malaise, which is loss of interest in things. Probably the best word for that is boredom. And the key neurotransmitter is that loss of dopamine. And so that's that's really uncomfortable. And so that pushes us right back to here because we don't like to be uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable is stress. And so what we're trying to do is break that cycle. So just do this with me, please. Think about what I've said, because I've given you a ton of stuff, which is probably marginally stressful. So let's just do this. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try that again. There we go. So again, if you did that, you would have noticed that parasympathetic nervous system starting to get engaged to settle down whatever you were feeling. And like that little simple breathing thing, like whatever you do in class doesn't have to be bigger than that. I mean, I've sent out lots and lots of different resources for this. But if you just use that one most of the time, that's all you need to do. Because what we're trying to do is just help the kids understand that they have the power to change and control how they feel. So I include this. So I sent this out like way earlier last year. This is a really good TED talk on why there's so much problem paying attention now and what we can do about it. Chris Hemsworth, who's apparently, I've never watched a Marvel movie, I'm sorry, is a Marvel movie guy, but this is a documentary he did on learning how to manage stress. And he talks about kind of all the things that I've talked about. And this is a really good little TED talk on how to why to teach mindfulness. So thank you. Thanks for listening to that. Uh, I will come and help anybody that needs some help with this stuff. Uh, I did a little mindfulness thing at one of the institutes last year. I'd be more than happy to do that again. We will send out lots of resources for this. So anyway, thanks for listening. And what do I need to do? I have no idea. Maybe this will work. No. Well, for heaven's sakes. Oh, there's